Hey, it's Juck. Number 1, David Sanders, offensive tackle out of North Carolina, the best offensive tackle in the country. Justin Fry needs a big win. This one's big time. Gotta land it. Number 2, Justin Hill out of Winton Woods in Cincinnati. There is no backup plan for a guy like Justin Hill. He's totally unique. They want him for that jack position, which he's perfect for. Absolute must get. Number 3, safety Fahim Delane out of Maryland. Jim Knowles' defense is safety driven. There's 2 safeties in the class already, in Cody Haddad and Sean Stewart. The way Trey McNutt's recruitment has been going makes Fahim Delane all that much more important. Number 4, and I'm cheating here, running back Bo Jackson or Jordan Davison. I believe the Buckeyes have Isaiah West in this class soon. They're going to need Bo Jackson or Jordan Davison. They want 3 in the class, got to get 2 high-quality guys. And if they miss on both of them, there's really nowhere to pivot. And number 5, Malik Autry out of Alabama. He's an Auburn commit, defensive tackle. There is nobody on the board like this dude. Totally unique to what the Buckeyes are after this year, and they've got to land this dude. Let's get it.
And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
And thank you so much for joining me. It's Juck on Bucks. There we go. We got a big weekend of visits ahead. We're going to go over that. CBS came out with their top 150 college football players. A few surprises on there for me. What it did, though, was it inspired me to do a top 10 Buckeye list. My top 10 Buckeyes, not my favorite, but who I think are the best. And I would encourage you guys to do this exercise too and put it in the comments, because once you get to like 7, there's like 6 or 7 guys for that last 3 spots. And I am really curious to see if everybody else is seeing this, how I'm seeing it, or vastly different. Anyway, week 1, we got our game time. The Buckeyes are going to play at 3:30 on CBS against Akron. CBS taking a whole lot of heat for making that decision. You'll see why in a second, though. Georgia and Clemson are going to play at noon. Georgia, a 13.5-point favorite against Clemson. That's wild. Then we roll into our Buckeyes at 3:30. Also in the 3:30 window, we've got Miami and Florida. Miami, a 3.5-point favorite over the Gators. And in the game of the night, College Station, Texas A&M and Notre Dame going at it. Texas A&M is a 1-point favorite. Don't forget to come hang out with me for the post-game show live after the Buckeyes game. I don't know why I'm talking about this like it's next week. We got a long way to go. Anyway, CBS taking a lot of heat for having this Ohio State and Akron game at 3:30 when people equate CBS with the SEC game of the week at 3:30. Of course, that SEC game of the week did not take place in week 1 or week 2. And the truth is, this is a really weak slate of games. I went through them all. Here's the top 5 games as I see it. You got Texas A&M and Notre Dame. You got Clemson and Georgia. So we already been through those 2. One in the evening, one in the noon slot. Then we got Miami and Florida at 3:30. After that, you got Penn State, West Virginia. And after that, buddy, it is dealer's choice. Like, there is nothing. I would say maybe Oregon, Idaho, Michigan, Fresno, Arizona State, Wyoming. Might be the next 3 if you're just looking at most competitive. And those aren't going to be competitive at all. Well, Arizona State, Wyoming might be, but I don't think many people care about that game. So putting the Rockstar Buckeyes in that slot was obviously the best move. Easy decision for CBS for sure. In this Buckeye team, let's be honest, traveling Rockstar team, everybody's been very interested in this team since 2 minutes after the confetti dropped when Quinshon Judkins sent that tweet that he was going to Ohio State. I am going to be surprised at what I'm not going to be surprised. The number of Ohio State Akron on CBS versus Miami and Florida on ABC, I think it might be pretty comparable, which that's pretty insane. But I think it might be. I think that the Buckeyes and the Zips might rival the number that they do over there. Can't wait to see. But we got a long way to go. We also got the time for week 2. The Buckeyes play Western Michigan, and that will be an evening game. Prime time against Western Michigan. This would normally make me really irritated. Normally, when the Buckeyes play at night against a garbage opponent, it means, so I don't do split screen when the Buckeyes are on. They get my full attention. I don't want anything else to distract me. I normally do split screens and watch several different games at once when the Buckeyes aren't playing. But when they're playing, I don't. So when they're on prime time playing a garbage opponent, I miss generally the two other good games that are going on at prime time. So I want that to play at noon. And I also think it does another thing. We've been whining for like 3 years now about the lack of primetime games we get now since the Fox Big Noon always takes the best game of the week in the Big Ten. Oftentimes that's us. We get stuck playing all the noon games, which I don't mind playing some of these big games at noon. But, it's too much. We want some primetime games back. Well, it allows them to point and say, well, we gave you some. You know what I mean? And I don't like that. It doesn't count when you give us Western Michigan or Toledo in the primetime spot. So not this week. It doesn't bother me. There's nothing on again. The slate of games in week 1 and week 2, some of the worst I've ever seen. Everybody is playing an FCS or a MAC level or a WAC level or a SWAC level team in week 2. It's pathetic. Week 2, we've got Michigan and Texas at noon. So a good game at noon. And then we got the Buckeyes in the evening. Other than that, there's just, man, it's weak. It's weak. It's slim pickings for sure. You got Iowa State. The Cyhawk is always a fun game. I usually never get to catch it. We'll get to see it this year because maybe the next game, best game after that, is Nebraska trying to get their revenge on Colorado from last year. That's about it. As for the other teams in the top 4, and we'll be following them closely all year, Georgia plays Tennessee Tech, not Tennessee. And Oregon plays Boise in a game that would have got our juices flowing maybe 15 years ago, not so much anymore. But all season, we're going to follow the Ducks. We're going to follow the Longhorns. We're going to follow the Dogs. And we're going to follow Michigan as well to see how they do. I got a fun comment from a Michigan fan yesterday who basically said the same thing I've been saying for a while about Sherrone Moore. I'll share that with you guys at the end. But not now. Right now, we're going to talk about Northwestern. So Northwestern is doing big things, and they're building a new Ryan Field, right? Well, as they build Ryan Field, that's obviously going to take a while. There was a big question about where they're going to play. And we know that we're going to play our matchup against Northwestern at Wrigley Field. But that's not till November. Up until November, when the Cubs are playing, they will be playing on campus in this thing. This is a 15,000 seat stadium. You will only be allowed to enter for games if you're a season ticket holder. We watched film yesterday on Jaden Ballard at Massillon from Paul Brown Stadium. That's a high school stadium that is bigger than this thing. And look at this, the seats all in the end zone. Like, what? Can you imagine the blowback if you tried to say, all right, the Buckeyes are building a new stadium, but you guys are going to have to watch it from this 15,000 seat stadium, and only the season ticket holders are allowed in. First off, that's not enough for just the season ticket holders. But that's just pathetic, man. That is pathetic. That's a Big Ten school. I mean, you can't play at Soldier Field or something. I mean, not that they need it. Look, I know it's all they need. The point is, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that that's a Big Ten school. But let's look at this butte that they're building. I mean, look at this thing. Northwestern is building that thing. That's pretty impressive for Northwestern. The only thing that's wrong with that picture, though, is everybody in the stands is wearing purple. And we know that's not the case at Northwestern. Now, somebody was pointing out how embarrassing it is that they're playing in this little thing here and that it's a Big Ten team. And they asked, how much does Northwestern make from the Big Ten? And I answered, they took in $60 million from the Big Ten last year. Well, Guy Benson from Fox News did not like that I said that. Of course, Fox and everybody else has people from Northwestern. Everybody in media, like 50% of them graduated from Northwestern. So he points out to me, this is temporary for some home games while a new privately funded $800 million stadium is constructed. Northwestern contributes to the overall Big Ten pot in various ways, including lucrative bowl payouts. Thank you, Northwestern, for your lucrative bowl payouts. Definitely, we are riding off your coattails here in the Big Ten, all the rest of us. from all your lucrative bowl payouts, Northwestern. They produce the nerdiest, goofiest journalists like little Stewball and that guy I've ever seen. But, is what it is. It's embarrassing. We got to play football in a conference with people like that. Also pointed out to me today how much money they bring into the AAU, which has 100 members. Like I give it to you. We're talking about football here, bud. Anyway, and I just can't stay out of the mix. I swear the other day when LSU got brought up on here, I complimented their fan base. This guy apparently didn't take it that way. LSU's fan base is what propelled them to 3 national championships since 2000. How many the Bucks got? I think they won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. I'm not quite sure. I think so. I don't follow the NFL too closely. That's not how you spell our kind of Bucks, pal. But if you're trying to compare LSU to Ohio State, go argue with Tennessee or Miami or something. You ain't on this level. Anyway, CBS top 150 players. Number 12, our first Buckeye makes the appearance. And that first Buckeye, in their opinion, is Quinshon Judkins. I like Quinshon Judkins a lot. Here's what they had to say about him. Ole Miss's most critical piece of an offense, figures to be a bell cow for another loaded offense in Columbus. Sources I've talked to said he's turning heads early and often, as he's not only a nice blend of speed and power, but also being used in the passing game. He's not RB1 on this team in my book, but a heck of a ball player. How about their next guy? Number 19, Caleb Downs. Can't argue there, not one bit. Number 38, Jack Sawyer. Sawyer had his best season as a pass rusher in 23, racking up 8 sacks and 38 pressures, but he's better against the run. He has great play recognition and excellent motor. You rarely see him take a play off. He's a real difference maker in the run game, and Ohio State is thrilled the former 5-starter stayed true to his word and returned to school even after a 3-sack performance in the Cotton Bowl. Right after him, number 39, Emeka. This guy could be wide receiver 1 on 99.9% of teams, but he keeps bringing the top talent. But OSU keeps bringing the top talent in the country. We figured Emeka would be finally number 1 this fall, but recruit Jeremiah Smith has been so terrific that perhaps he'll nab that spot. Anyway, he's versatile enough to play anywhere on the field. He's an excellent route runner and causes damage in the open field, despite lacking elite speed. Number 51 in the country, wide receiver Travion Henderson. And the more I see this kind of stuff, number 51, the more I like our guy Dr. Nance's $4 bet for Travion to win the Heisman with a $484 payout. That's a sweet bet. Anyway, Trey, when healthy, he's a problem for opposing defenses. Travion is fluid, great vision, amazing speed, home run hitter as both a runner and a receiver. We never thought he'd be somebody's RB2 in college. That's because he's not. But the timeshare with portal edition Quinshon Judkins should do wonders for his durability. This will be one of the best thunder and lightning combinations we've seen in recent memory. Number 81, Denzel Burke. I'm not sure if Denzel Burke is a superstar, which is where he looked like he was headed after his freshman year. But after a bounce-back junior season, he's a nice piece on a real stingy Ohio State defense that plays together as a unit. Burke had 1 interception and defended 10 passes with 9 pass breakups for the Buckeyes. He can give up too much cushion at times, and he needs to be more of a playmaker on the back end. He's better in zone coverage than man. Number 92, Ohio State center Seth McLaughlin. McLaughlin was an excellent blocker over the last few seasons at Alabama, but decided to change the scenery was best for him after having some snapping issues with Jaden Milroe. McLaughlin plays with a high IQ, does a nice job sorting through protections to get everyone on the same page. Excellent in both run and pass protection. 117, JT. 118, Tyleek. 128, our last Buckeye makes the appearance in the top 150, Will Howard. But coming in right under the gun, just behind Will Howard, who our pals up north mock mercilessly, is their hero Donovan Edwards at 142. The Madden cover boy, number 142 in the country. Congratulations, friends. So just to review, their list goes Quinshon, Caleb Downs, Jack Sawyer, Emeka Egbuka, Trayshawn, Seth, JT, Will Howard. All right, Now, my top 10 Buckeyes, I decided to do this. I put it together. And again, I suspect we're all going to be different on this, but this is how I see it. Caleb Downs is the number one football player on this team. He led Alabama in tackles as a freshman. That's insane. That's a playoff team. Crazy. Playoff team with a loaded roster. It's just nuts. A guy that everybody on the team and the coaching staff respects. They did as a freshman at Alabama. We can tell how much they do now already for the Buckeyes. He might be the best football player in the country. He really might. He's definitely in the conversation. And he's got 2 more years left with us. That's crazy. Like, if you're in that conversation as maybe the best football player in the country, and you've still got 3 years of college eligibility, how many times has that happened that you can remember in your college football fandom that a guy after his true freshman year has been in the conversation for the best football player in the country? I'd have to sit down and think about it, but just off the top of my head, not many. We'll put it that way. Number 2 for me is Travion Henderson, and I may be higher on him than a lot of people. I think I am, but I think he's the best back in the country. Very rarely do we see a guy as big, thick, and physical as him. He can put his head down and smash somebody. We saw that a lot last year, but he has that electric burst, and it's that burst that separates him from everybody. He's got a scat back, a fast scat back, 175 pounders burst. So rare for a guy that size. And when you can take one the distance at any time, that is special. That's unique. That's what makes him better than Quinshawn, or better than, any of these other backs that we've talked about, that we've argued about over the last few weeks. There's just not many like him. And when you can really see it is in the spring, there was a clip that they played, and it just had our 5 backs coming out of the backfield, making one cut and then hitting the gas, and watching them one after the next, looking all identical, which is high class, excellent athletes, great running backs. And there was only one guy that was different, and it was Trey, and it was obvious, and it was just like, wow. That one ball that he caught at Rutgers, caught a little screen pass at Rutgers and made a cut, hit the gas, and it was a thing of beauty. It's just rare, man. It's so rare. And if he can stay healthy, I hope he does. I really hope he stays healthy and shows everybody what he really is, because I think they doubt him a lot. They doubt him a lot, and the injuries have soured some people on him. If he can stay healthy this year, look out. Look out. He still had 1,100 yards and 5.9 yards a carry last year. I don't think everybody realizes that he still rushed for over 1,000 yards. I expect another 1,000 this year. He also caught 20 balls last year for over 200 yards. I mean, that's pretty impressive as well. All right, number 3 for me, Emeka Egbuka. Always where you need him to be. We tend to devalue receivers who don't have that huge downfield skill set when we talk about best wide receivers in football. I don't know why we value that skill set so much more than the one that's a lot of times much more productive, which is a guy like Mech. Production-wise, this dude just produces. Being injured last year really dropped him off the radar of a lot of people. And even with those injuries, again, just like Trey, 75 receptions for 1,100 yards, 15.6 per reception. Those are excellent numbers. Those are really good numbers. That's on a team with Marvin Harrison Jr. He's always where he needs to be. He's fast. He's physical. He's got great hands, and he's a fantastic leader. He's been undervalued by many, even in our own camp. I think that changes this year. Number 4 for me is Denzel Burke. I think he's the top 3 corner in the country. Last year, only 21 targets thrown his way in single coverage. Burke made more plays on the ball, 6 combined, in interceptions and forced incompletions than he allowed catches, 5. That's pretty wild. He does it with an attitude. The dude's nasty. He can play himself into the first round this year. We saw it from him as a freshman. This guy's just a nasty corner. First round talent. We'll see if he can do it this year. Number 5, Jack. Obviously, Jack, a guy that came in off the heels of the Bozas and Chase Young as a recruit that was talked about like that. And we expected to see a player like that, but he's not that type of player. He's a different style of player. He's a bigger, stronger, just different dude. Putting him in the jack position like they did was a terrible idea. It really slowed down his development, in my opinion. But it's clicked. It's clicked now. He's all the way jack. 10 TFLs and 6 sacks on the year, but in the last 3 games, 7.5 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. He obviously came back this year to do what he needs to do with the team, but he also came back to continue to show what he's really got and show that it wasn't just a fluke. This is who he is now. I believe he is. Incredible against the run, elite work ethic, elite leader. Obviously not a crazy edge rusher, but that's not who he is, though I think we suspect they're going to unleash him a little more this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if they enticed him and JT back with a little bit of that. We've not heard that directly, but, I would imagine that had something to do with it. Number 6, IGB. Davison Igbinosa is so smooth that he makes glasses look cool. For starters, he was a top 125 player coming out of high school, a freshman All-American at OLE Miss, who then transferred to us. And that's a huge get in the transfer portal that I don't think got the appropriate amount of run or fanfare at the time. That's a huge portal get. 50% completion percentage on targets, all the physical traits you want from a nasty cornerback, 59 tackles, 5 pass breakups. This dude is great. He's not good. He's great, and he's going to prove it. I think that he has every chance to play himself into pick 25 to 45 in the NFL draft. Like, he is just a stud. Number 7 for me is Tyleek. 53 tackles, very high for an interior defensive lineman. Excellent in the run, 23 run stops, led the team. He can also clog up the middle, take on double teams. He can do the sexy stuff. He can do the dirty stuff. He holds the line. 3 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. Tyleek, my number 7. Number 8, Quinshawn Judkins. Last year, 271 carries for 1,150 yards and 15 touchdowns. 78 missed tackles after contact. That's a massive stat. For comparison, I think Trey had like 26. So that's just a massive stat. Incredibly tough to bring down. We know that. You could see it on tape, but the stats back it up too. A beastly back, absolute beastly back who has been clocked at 22.5 miles per hour. That's absolutely burning at max speed. Doesn't have the sudden acceleration like Trey. And to me, it's that sudden acceleration that is much more valuable in a running back because you can showcase that on every play when you can rarely have opportunities to hit max speed. Number 9, JTT, 26 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 29 hurries. Solid all-around player, a vet. Dude's he's a solid player. He's a really good player. He's not Jack to me. I hope this year we can see a little more out of him. But he's my number 9 player. And number 10 for me is Jordan Hancock. Hancock, overshadowed by his peers. This guy could be a top corner at a lot of places. Perfect skill set for a nickel. Physical, and he likes it. 6'1", fast, can cover. Dude's flat out legit. All right, the first couple out. And, this is where it's like, who do you put here? Jermaine Matthews is a future superstar, versatile, nasty attitude, just a total stud. The absolute perfect prototype corner. Josh Simmons, this dude may turn into an elite left tackle. He's definitely got the physical tools to do it. We saw him lose a ton of weight and go from looking like this to looking like that. Lathan Ransom, an enforcer, loves football. Donovan Jackson, guy's just gotten better and better. I think that he has the ability to be a long-time NFL player if he can really put a good one together this year. And, of course, the guy who's not yet played a game for the Buckeyes, who, when we do this list again halfway through the season, could put himself in the top 3, right? JJ could put himself in the top 3 in the first 6 games. Who knows? He might be able to. He very well could. I mean, even if he doesn't have top 3 production, I think we'll see enough to know against college competition. Yeah, it's just what it is. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm over the shock. Like, nothing's going to shock me anymore from this guy. Nothing at all. He could come in and have a 240-yard game in his 3rd game in college. I'd say, yep, no doubt. Carnell has a shot to get on this list for sure. He's not on it yet for me. He might be on it for you. But let me know how you see it. I think it's a fun exercise. It was a lot of fun for me. It was very difficult to do. I probably swapped things around 4 or 5 times to get it right where I wanted it. And even then, I'm still not sure. You could probably talk me into changing a lot of those things, but a good time nonetheless. The SEC and the Big Ten odds have come out in the conference, and I always think these are interesting to go over. Not because I want to gamble on them, or you do either. I actually can't stand on holding a bet from the beginning of the season all the way to the end unless I think it's something that's going to be a positive lock, like Iowa over 7.5 games, which I've been telling you guys. That's a good one. Bet that one. But not these. The payout generally is not big enough unless I have real high confidence that a team that's a little further down is going to take the cake. I don't want to bet it. I just don't like having my money tied up that long. But what we got here for the Big Ten is Ohio State at plus 160, so a pretty heavy favorite. Oregon at 210, and those two are pretty lumped together as the two that are very much most likely, according to the numbers, to make the championship game. And what's fun about these is we're seeing right now what the data spits out. So this is what the data spits out to Vegas based on returning players and power rankings and everything that goes into that. And then when we see it change, we're going to see what the public thinks. So does the public feel differently? We'll see how the public feels by how these numbers change. So you got Ohio State and Oregon kind of in a tier under themselves. Then you got Michigan and Penn State first, then Michigan second in that second tier group. Then after them, you got USC in a group by themselves. So those 5 teams clearly stand up ahead of everybody else. And then you got Iowa, Washington, Nebraska, Wisconsin kind of lumped together there. And you head all the way down and see a school like Minnesota, which is the one that kind of stands out to me. Incredibly disappointing after all the years PJ Fleck's been there. And, this guy was really rowing the boat. And I mean, for a school with 4 national championships, okay, as many as LSU and Georgia, by the way. And I'm told that national championships are all that matter when we're judging a program. By the way, LSU guy, Wisconsin or Minnesota has as many national championships as you, pal. But, I'm told that that's all that matters when judging a college football team. So Minnesota should really be better. But I think Michigan is probably the highest value pick here at plus 525. Can they make it to that conference championship game? No. But if you believed in them, putting that 525, that might be a good bet. All right, let's take a look at the SEC. You got Georgia leading the way, of course, at 185. Texas at plus 310. Ole Miss at plus 650. After that, you got Alabama, LSU, and Tennessee kind of lumped together. Then Missouri, Texas A&M, Oklahoma at plus 4,000. Oklahoma at plus 4,000. Texas A&M at plus 2,000. But how does Oklahoma get so little respect here? And Texas A&M in Elko's first year with a pile of transfers, 28 transfers, getting so much love. I'm not understanding that. And I'm not understanding how Texas A&M is favored over Notre Dame. I don't know what everybody's seeing in Texas A&M in Elko year 1 that I'm missing here. Somebody help me out here. But pretty interesting here. If you're going to put a bet down on here, I think Ole Miss, that's a pretty good bet. Can Ole Miss get to the championship game? Let's go chalky here. Let's take a look at their schedule. And if we're looking at the Ole Miss schedule, they got Furman, Middle, Wake, Georgia Southern. Conference game, they got Kentucky at home, at South Carolina, at LSU. That's going to be their first really tough game, a rivalry game. Then they got Oklahoma at home, Arkansas, Georgia, Florida. By that time, Florida's going to be really beat up. and Mississippi State. So you got LSU as your next toughest game outside of Georgia. If we go chalk, they're going to be favored in all these games. So let's say they lose to Georgia. But let's take a look at the Texas schedule. Texas, and we're just looking at conference schedule here because this will be for the tiebreaker. If Texas goes chalk, we'll say, and they only lose to Georgia, they both play Oklahoma. They both play Florida. Texas does not play LSU. So if Texas and Ole Miss both go chalk and only lose to Georgia, the tiebreaker is going to be SEC opponents' winning percentage. And the fact that Ole Miss plays LSU, I think they will win the tiebreaker and go to the SEC championship game. So because of that, Ole Miss bet, if you believe in them a little bit, is a better bet than Texas. But that would be pretty funny if Texas got shut out of that game on that stupid tiebreaker. I hate these tiebreakers, man. I don't know how else you can do it, but I hate it. You know, there's going to be so many conferences now as we head into these conference championship games. These conferences are so big. So many of these are going to be decided on tiebreakers. I mean, it could be every other year in the Big Ten or the SEC. One of those two opponents gets into that game based on a tiebreaker. And that's a real bummer. I really hate that. All right, look ahead line, games of note. Ohio State at 2 books I checked today is -1.5 at Oregon. Previously, I had seen they were +1.5 at Oregon. So this was FanDuel and MGM. Both had the Buckeyes as 1.5 point favorites. So we're looking at a 3-point swing with Ohio State and Oregon. Now, I hadn't seen the MGM or the FanDuel line a ways back. So I don't know if that line has changed based on public money or if these guys just had very different lines, which can happen this early in the season with a look-ahead line or with a look-ahead line. So, you know, we're looking at a really tight game either way. This guy, you know, this is a coin flip game in the eyes of Vegas. So it's definitely a coin flip game in my eyes. Georgia -13.5 at Clemson. We covered that. Miami -3.5 to Florida. And A&M, a 1.5 point favorite, hosting Notre Dame. That one surprises me a lot. LSU -6.5 to USC. USC, of course, been trying to get out of that game, and that's very soft. Texas heads up to Michigan. They're -3.5. Of course, the Texas president thinks it's going to be really hot there, but not to worry. Michigan's going to have out all the water and the towels, he said. So that'll be good. Georgia -3.5 at Alabama. Give me Georgia. Michigan -9.5 at Washington. Washington, a tough place to play. Is Michigan going to go out there and handle them like that? Jed Fish brought in a lot of transfers. He's a pretty good coach. We'll see how fast he can get it together. Florida State -3.5 hosting Clemson. Texas -8.5 in Red River. Georgia -1.5 at Texas. And LSU at home -2.5 to Bama. Oh, wait, one more. Ohio State -9.5 to Michigan. Oh, there we go. Okay. And a new top 25 comes out, USA Today. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Oregon 4, Notre Dame 5, LSU at 6, Alabama 7, Florida State at 8, Clemson at 9, Penn State at 10, Ole Miss at 11, Oklahoma at 12, Tennessee at 13. I guess that's where it ends. Tennessee at 13, and that's it. Where's Michigan? I don't know where they are in this one. USC, the Trojans led by Lincoln Riley, a guy who seemingly had a ton of shine heading in there, and he had a bad season last year. He can make a Heisman Trophy out of a talented 5-star quarterback every year if he wants to, it seems. But he can't field a defense or put enough emphasis on a defense. Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans, whatever Lincoln Riley is doing as far as facilitating his team to be able to field a defense has just been horrible. Went into USC after really tearing the hearts out of Oklahoma and goes up to USC, starts off pretty hot. Guy can obviously make a 5-star or a 3-star into a Heisman Trophy winner. Great at the offensive side of the ball. Lincoln Riley, great on the offensive side of the ball. Can make a 3-star or a 5-star into a Heisman Trophy winner. Leaves Oklahoma, spurns the Sooner Nation. Developed a lot of enemies down there for sure. And goes up to USC. Very ballyhooed hire. And started off pretty hot. Last year was a terrible season. The defense was just awful. They get rid of Alex Grinch, old buddy at Ohio State. He heads up to Wisconsin with Luke Fickell, and Lincoln attempts to revamp the defense. And he's made a ton of good hires. There is some serious energy in defensive recruiting up at USC. And he's trying finally to put some emphasis on the defensive side of the ball. I think he's going to be successful because the hires he made are fantastic, and the energy around the program, in the NIL, everything's humming, looking really good. They head into the Big Ten this year, and they start off with a pretty tough conference for your first year. Well, let's go over that conference. Let's go over that schedule. So we start off with LSU in one of the most anticipated games of that first week. And the game against LSU, two teams who last year had horrible defenses, fantastic offenses, two great quarterbacks. They get past that, and then they play Utah State. And then immediately, they're at Michigan. Michigan going to be down a bit this year. That defense is still going to be looking really good. It's going to be a tough test going into there for sure for USC. Then they got Wisconsin at home. The Badgers are getting better every year under Fick. To Wisconsin, to Minnesota. Then they got Penn State at home. Traveling over all the way to the East Coast to Maryland. Then they got Rutgers, up at Washington. Then they bring in Nebraska and at UCLA. So big games. We got LSU, Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State, and Washington. And Nebraska might just be on their level this year. I don't know. We'll see. Nebraska getting better. But the point is, week one, non-conference games, big time for us to watch. We got Texas at Michigan, Georgia and Clemson, which, that's a 14-point line on that one. That might not be too competitive. Texas A&M and Notre Dame. Surprisingly, Notre Dame goes down to Texas A&M. Texas A&M is the favorite. They're a 1-point favorite. That really surprised me. I wasn't expecting you to see that. Mike Elko's brought in 28 transfers, so I haven't really dug into that roster, but apparently it's got a lot of respect from Vegas. Then we got Miami at Florida. That'll be a fun one. Miami on the come up. I really feel they're going to make the playoffs this year. And the Gators, Billy Napier, obviously got a crazy hard schedule this year, but he's feeling pretty confident. They've been doing great on the recruiting trail, looking good. But USC LSU, that's the game. That game is running unopposed on TV in prime time. It's from Las Vegas. Both teams are making $5 million off this game. LSU opens as a 6.5-point favorite over USC in that week one matchup. This game was scheduled back when Clay Helton was still coaching at USC. Well, Saturday Down South just came out with a report, corroborated by a couple of unnamed sources, that USC has tried for nearly 2 years to find a way out of the contract to play LSU in that Las Vegas Bowl because Lincoln Riley doesn't want the game. At one point, Fox Sports even got involved trying to assist USC to get out of the game because obviously this is USC's first year in the Big Ten. Fox Sports in the Big Ten, that's their property. And ESPN has the contract for the game, ESPN, ABC. So Fox, they can't stand that the Big Ten team is playing their first game over on ESPN, ABC. Last fall, a new athletic director came into USC, and she was even trying to get another opponent for LSU so that LSU would agree to get out of the game. But LSU wasn't budging. They want the game. They want the $5 million. They don't get the $5 million if you throw in some random opponent. They want to play a blue blood. They want to play USC. Everybody else has already, got games. So that's not happening. So Saturday Down South says that the LSU athletic director, Scott Woodward, and the Las Vegas Bowl executive director, John Ciconti, were down at media days, SEC media days. They declined to comment on this when they brought it up to him. The report also claims that Trace Armstrong, who is the agent who represents both Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley, somebody close to him tells them that Lincoln Riley attempted to get the agent to kind of be a go-between between him and Brian Kelly to help him get out of this game. Now, USC has a pretty difficult schedule. Let's go over it without LSU once. Take a look at it without LSU. So big games, you got Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State, and Washington. I missed Notre Dame. How did I miss Notre Dame? Oh, this thing cut me off. I got to start over. All right, so the USC Trojans, led by Lincoln Riley, a guy who, I don't know, man, kind of the shine might be wearing off a little bit. He was a bit of a darling in Oklahoma, then stunned all of us when he just up and left, went to LA to coach the Trojans. Didn't really seem like an LA kind of guy, but apparently he is, and that really shocked me. He made a ton of enemies in Oklahoma. It was kind of one of the first moves where we saw a coach. Well, I guess we saw before that, we saw Jimbo leave Florida State for Texas A&M. That was maybe the first one where we saw a coach at a really high-profile place that was still, doing well, leave for another place like that. But when Riley left Oklahoma to go to USC, that really shocked me, like big time. We're talking about 2 of the 8 historical blue bloods. Oklahoma, number 5 on the Juck on Bucks all-time program list. USC, number 6. So he actually downgraded per our list. But he started off good. Started off really good at USC. Momentum, things were going great. And he obviously can coach himself some quarterbacks, but defense, whatever he does with the program, however he goes about it, how they practice, whatever it is, they can't get it down. A terrible season last year, wasted Caleb Williams for his last year, and that has to be pretty disappointing for USC fans. But they're heading to the Big Ten, and there's a ton of excitement. Lincoln Riley gets rid of Alex Grinch. Alex Grinch heads to Wisconsin, and Lincoln goes on a coaching hiring tear, and we've been over this before. He hired some great coaches, Danton Lynn, line coach from the Rams, and these dudes are recruiting great. They got a ton of groundswell of support from this class of 2025 on the defensive side of the ball, along with Julian Lewis, one of the top quarterbacks in the class out of Georgia, 2 5-star defensive linemen out of Georgia. And a lot of people think Georgia's going to be able to flip those guys at the end. We'll see. But USC's got their NIL pumping well. They got a lot of momentum with these new coaches on the defensive side of the ball. And things are looking up. They're heading to the Big Ten. They're wanting to come in and take the conference by storm, like Oregon feels like they're going to do. But they know they're probably a couple years out. So how are they going to do this year? Well, they want to do better than they think they're going to do with LSU on the schedule, and we'll get to that in a second. So let's talk about their schedule first, their first year as they come into the league. So they start off with LSU in week 1 in a game that's probably the biggest one of the week. Then they have Utah State. Then they're at Michigan, home against Wisconsin, at Minnesota, home against Penn State. Out to the East Coast to play Maryland. Then they host Rutgers, which will be a tougher matchup than it would sound normally. Then they're at Washington, always a tough place to play. Versus Nebraska, at UCLA. And then they host Notre Dame to end the season. So a pretty doggone tough schedule. Their first year out of the gate in the Big Ten. Now, week 1, a game that has some mega games for us, the spectator, to watch. A whole lot of fun ones. We've got Texas going to Michigan. Texas favored by 3.5. Georgia versus Clemson in a neutral site game. Georgia a 14-point favorite. Who knows how close that'll be. Texas A&M hosts Notre Dame, and maybe the surprise line of the week for me, Notre Dame goes down as the dog against Texas A&M. Now, Mike Elko, brand new coach at Texas A&M, has brought in 28 transfers. We just went over that the other day. I haven't really dove into that roster, but Vegas certainly has a lot of respect for it. If Notre Dame in Marcus Freeman's third year is walking into there as the underdog. Then we got Miami and Florida. Miami, who I think is, got a real good shot at being a playoff team this year, total roster upgrade. And the Gators also been getting a whole lot of momentum on the recruiting trail, signed some good transfer portal players, but Billy Napier in year 3, having been a massive disappointment so far, has an incredibly tough schedule, the toughest in the country, but he's feeling confident. That's what he's saying down at SEC Media Days. But USC and LSU is the game of the week. It's running unopposed on ABC in primetime, Las Vegas Bowl style. Both teams are making $5 million a game to play this puppy. LSU opens up as a 6.5-point favorite over USC for the week 1 matchup. This game was scheduled back when Clay Helton was still at USC, 4 months before Lincoln Riley even came aboard. Now, Saturday Down South just came out with a report. And this report, corroborated by a couple of unnamed sources, that USC has been trying for nearly 2 years to find a way out of the contract to play LSU in this Las Vegas Bowl because Coach Lincoln Riley doesn't want the game. At one point, Fox Sports, obviously not happy. They bring USC comes into the Big Ten. Fox Sports, they got the deal with the Big Ten. And this will be their first big-time game in the Big Ten. But it's going to be aired on ESPN ABC. So Fox tried to assist USC to get out of this game. Unsuccessfully. Last fall, a new athletic director came into USC, and the whole administration, was trying to find another opponent for LSU that would satisfy LSU so that USC could get out of the game. LSU wasn't budging. They want the game. They want the $5 million. They don't get that $5 million unless they're playing USC or a comparable opponent. It's a blue blood matchup there. So that's not happening. The LSU athletic director, Scott Woodward, and executive director of the Las Vegas Bowl, John Ciconti, were at SEC Media Days this week. A Saturday Down South asked these guys about it. They declined to comment. But the report also claims that Trace Armstrong, who is the agent for both Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly, somebody close to him said that Lincoln Riley approached him and tried to get him as a go-between between him and Brian Kelly to try to work something out to get USC out of this game. Now, USC has a difficult schedule this year for their first year in the conference, no doubt. But USC has been attempting to get out of this before the schedule was even released. Remember when the Big Ten had the 16-team schedule after USC and UCLA joined, the Big Ten came out with the schedule, had to trash that when Oregon and Washington joined and come out with a new one. That first one for USC was quite a bit easier. And USC's been trying to get out of this since then. I'm kind of stunned, man. These type of games in this atmosphere, this playoff atmosphere, where 12 teams are going to make the playoff, and we're talking about you can afford 2 losses, and if you get a big win, maybe even 3. Like, these are the games I want for my team. Like, I want to play a big game every year early, for sure. You can afford to lose it. And if you win it, all the better. It also puts you on the national stage. It's great. Everything about it's great. I'm surprised that this dude is trying to get out of this game so hard. And we're talking about an LSU team who last year, their defense was atrocious. I watched their spring game. It didn't get much better so far. They got a good new defensive coordinator in, Missouri's defensive coordinator. He's good. I think their talent's a little lacking compared to where they're usually at LSU. So last year, both teams had great offenses, obviously great quarterbacks. This seems like a pretty evenly matched game to me. I think the line's probably somewhat accurate. LSU's the favorite in my mind. But this isn't a game USC can't win. And we're talking about trying to weasel out of it to make your schedule easier in your first year. It's a soft look, man. Soft look for a soft dude which is what I've always felt about Lincoln Riley. I talk about Ryan Day being soft. This dude's soft. My goodness. Trying to get out of this game. Ryan Day wouldn't get out of that game. Ryan Day would embrace that challenge. And then call you out in the middle of the field. How about that? Anyway, all right, guys, that's our show. That'll do me for it. We will see you next time on the weekend show. Please like and subscribe. Check me out on the weekend show, and anything you want to find is in podcast form at any podcast place you got. I'm there, and I will see you then. Talk to you soon. Juck and Bucks out.